Good evening. I would like to welcome members to the reconvened June Council. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting is being live streamed to the Council's online webcast channel. Can I please remind members to stand when speaking? I have received apologies of absences from Councillor Abbas, Baker, Kent, John, Kathy Kent, Mainley, and Councillor Massey and Councillor Salmons this evening. Are there any further apologies of absences?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've also got Councillor Churchman won't be here this evening, and Councillor Duffin is running a little bit late as he's just been caught at work.
Right, thank you. Councillor Holloway.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to say, Councillor Watson is running slightly late as well, but we will be joining the meeting as soon as possible.
Councillor Byrne, anybody? I would like to ask Reverend Canon Darren Barlow to lead us in prayer for tonight's meeting.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's often said that the most overused and overworked word in the English language is I. How often do we say, look at what I've done, or see how successful I am, forgetting that we only are successful because we've been helped by a great number of people and are quite often part of a much larger team. On the 29th of May 1953, Edmund Hillary and a Sherpa named Tenzin pulled themselves up to the snowy summit of Mount Everest. This afternoon, that might sound quite attractive. But they were the first people to stand on the highest point on Earth, with the world stretching out below them in every direction that they chose to look. Of that thrilling moment of great personal achievement, Hillary wrote, I looked at Tenzin, in spite of the balaclava helmet, goggles and oxygen mask, all encrusted with thick icicles that concealed his face. There was no disguising his grin of delight as he looked all around him. We shook hands, and then Tenzin threw his arms around my shoulders, and we thumped each other on the back until we were almost breathless. It was 11:30 a.m. on that memorable date, the 29th of May 1953. It's been a hard and strenuous climb, an amazing achievement, but it had only been possible because of teamwork. Most people know the name of Hillary and Tenzin, but don't know the name of the person that organised and led the expedition. It was a man called Sir John Hunt. And he wrote, the greatness of climbing on the highest hills lies in the fact that no single man or woman is capable of reaching a summit by their own efforts. Hillary and Tenzin felt on top of the world, as indeed they were, thanks to their hard work, commitment and recognition, but also exactly the same from a good number of people who we don't know the names of. For each of us here in our lives, we have many mountains to climb, and that's true for Thurrock as a council. There are many challenges that lie ahead, not least as we move forward from the COVID-19 pandemic. Despite these many challenges that lie before us, Thurrock Council has immense resources available in terms of its people, buildings and equipment. And as we look to the future, we remember that when everyone seeks to work together and personal ambition is laid aside, and we move from what I can do to what we can do, then the best outcomes can be achieved for all of the people of Thurrock. So a brief prayer. We pray that this evening's meeting of Thurrock Council, we pray for ears to listen, minds to pause and consider, and mouths to speak as we seek to serve one another and the people of this borough of Thurrock. Amen. Amen.
Thank you. I have agreed that Councillor Byrne can present his petition again in regards to the proposed closure of Kynant Court Day Centre. Would you like to present your petition?
Thank you for agreeing to this. Last time, obviously, people couldn't hear me, but this petition is from care workers worried about the place where they take their people that they care for. But can I ask Councillor Gledhill something? No? It's good.
I'm sure it is, Councillor Burns, but that would be outside the
They've had a
constitution.
letter from their MP, and all they want to do is to talk to someone like you, to show you care, show that they're not worried about going to... They've got 1,500 seats, but all they want to do is meet and talk. Thank you.
Thank you. I will move on to item 13. To receive report from the Cabinet members. Councillor Maney, as Cabinet Member for Transport and Highways, has sent his apologies this evening. Meeting his portfolio report will be presented at a later date. Item 14. The second portfolio hold report on the agenda will be from Councillor Spillman. As Cabinet Member for Housing, would you please introduce your report? This report can be found on pages 65 to 74.
Thank you, Councillor Coxon. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to wish you a warm welcome and I hope you have a very enjoyable year. It's my first portfolio report and it's your first meeting in chamber, and I can imagine that I'm probably the most nervous out of the two of us, to be honest. Just to say that you know, we won't take your tenure for granted because obviously we know what might be awaiting us next year. So the long shadow, going to the report, the long shadow of COVID will cast you know, a long shadow over many of the...
Hold on a minute. Councillor Kieran, are you right? No. Oh. All right. Sorry, Councillor Spearman.
The long shadow of COVID will be cast over a number of reports over the next year. However, I'm proud to be able to present a report to this chamber tonight that demonstrates that Thurrock's Housing Department didn't merely stand up to this challenge, it actually surpassed all expectations in so many areas. First and foremost, I must take a moment to pay tribute to the incredible work of all our staff. I must also offer my deepest thanks to the former Director, Roger Harris, the former Assistant Director, Carol Himvest, and my predecessor, Councillor Barry Johnson. Make no mistake, this department has faced unprecedented financial restrictions over the last few years, even before COVID. 5 years ago, the department was in crisis, yet I have inherited a department performing better in almost every metric, providing a far higher level of customer care. A department which is funded and staffed much nimbler and better equipped to deal with the new emerging challenges than it has been for many years. It's for this reason that I've been able to instruct officers to come back to me with plans in areas such as temporary accommodation, house building and supported accommodation on a scale and scope significantly beyond that which we have seen for many years. I'm very excited to be working on these plans with such great officers led by a new team, Ian, Evelina and Sean. The report before you outlines a level of KPI performance that would be largely satisfactory during a normal year, let alone a year with a once-in-a-century pandemic. Indeed, given what is achieved this year, I'm half-minded to double the difficulty level of our KPIs once the pandemic is over. They say that necessity is the mother of invention. This certainly appears to be the case with this report. We have been forced to work smarter and differently in so many areas. Nowhere has this been demonstrated so clearly than in the Council's management of the Everyone In scheme. As someone who has worked within housing fields for many years, I cannot adequately express my pride in our achievement in not only rehousing every single rough sleeper who was reported to us, but also linking them back to vital mental health, support, drug and alcohol services. We didn't just save lives from being taken by COVID, we saved the future of those rough sleepers, benefiting from having the support services that they needed to get back on their feet. The Secretary of State, Robert Jenrick, has stated that street homelessness will be abolished by the end of this Parliament. Thurrock stands ready and willing to do our bit. This pandemic, so devastating in so many ways, has at least revealed the art of the possible when it comes to street homelessness. This report also highlights a very impressive tenant satisfaction feedback across the services that the Council delivers. However, these results are no reason to rest on our laurels. Indeed, I have requested a further expansion of our customer satisfaction measurement methodology. I want to see more qualitative research and better analysis of all the data we collect. If we're not performing as well as we could in any area, then I want to know about it quickly. I want us to be learning from it immediately and acting on it quicker than ever before. I am incredibly excited about taking on the responsibility of Cabinet Member for Housing. There are great opportunities for this borough, and I will do my very best to make sure these opportunities are realised. I believe that the sun is finally shining on Thurrock's Housing Department again, and now is the time to make hay. With that, I open the chamber for questions.
Councillor Worrow, as Shadow Portfolio Holder for Housing and Chair of Housing Overview and Scrutiny Committee, do you have any questions to ask the Portfolio Holder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and yes, I do. Thank you, Councillor Spillman, for your report, and I welcome you as the portfolio holder for Cabinet, because if there's one thing people know in this chamber, it's me and you are very, very passionate about housing. So my first question is, you have always been very critical and made your views very clear on how to borough placements for our homeless residents. I would expect that one of your very first conversations with officers would be how to put this right. And with this in mind, can you tell me how many residents, both single and families, do we have living in temporary accommodation out of borough, and what time frame have you set officers to get them all back here and housed here in Thurrock where they belong?
So as you know, we've got too many, and the worry is that there's going to be an avalanche of new homelessness cases, okay? And we're all worried about that. It's the thing that anyone who's working in housing is keeping us awake at night. But what I can say is that my first act, as when I went into the housing portfolio holder, was to ask for plans to create a huge amount of extra places within the borough, okay? So I can happily announce that we will hopefully be bringing plans to September and the following amount of months for up to around 100 extra placements, council-owned, in borough. This is not only the moral thing to do, this is not only the necessary thing to do, but it actually saves this borough a lot of money. And so I'm really happy to be able to say that that is, as I said when I first met with portfolio holders, this is my #1 priority. And that's what I will be delivering on. And it will be something that committee will be very much involved in, okay?
Thanks, Councillor Spillman. If you could just make sure that I did ask about how many we actually have. I think that this chamber should know exactly how many we do have. So if you could find that out and make sure that I get that.
Of course.
Then rather than me having to put it into officers, I'm sure that you could get that. And my second question is kind of linked and a little bit around your answer that you just gave. But I am very, very worried that as the safeguards that have been put in place for private renters during COVID-19 are lifted, private landlords will now begin to evict tenants. So as well as the homeless that we've already got, we're going to have a whole load more. So this will add further pressures on an already overwhelmed homeless team. What measures have you put in place that officers can cope with the demand? And again, that no family is forced out of Thurrock?
Again, as I say, it's something that I have, like, not just as a portfolio holder, but in my professional work in 9 to 5 as well. Now, we're not sure how many extra homeless cases we're going to get. Yeah, and it could be a lot. And so you have all, you have my guarantee that because we're putting this extra capacity within the service, hopefully that should be enough to cover it. But it is something that is deeply worrying. Yeah? I don't know, and I can't get access to data that tells me exactly how much rent arrears there is laying around in the system. Although there are quite a lot of extra applications for possession orders and a lot of older applications for possession orders, I can't tell you how many of them are going to turn into evicted families. It is definitely a worrying phenomena. We don't know the level of it, but again, we will meet the challenge by hook or by crook. And if it becomes a national problem on a scale above what local authorities can cope with, I have confidence that the government will raise their standards to meet that challenge.
Thank you. I look forward to working with you very closely on making sure that we do meet those pledges for our families. So lastly, I'll change a little bit of direction for my third question. So the recent damp and mould report that said that in the last 2 years, over 11% of our council homes were treated for damp and mould. The press release which you released advised that the problems with damp and mould is improving in our council homes. In reality, the problem is really not improving. Some of our families are living in deteriorating conditions, and this affects both their physical and mental health. Do you honestly think that it is acceptable that 11% of homes in Thurrock regularly have problems with damp and mould, and what are you going to do about it?
I think one of the things is to separate different levels of damp and mould. Now, I've lived in a flat that has had an interior bathroom with no windows and a fan that occasionally got damp and mould, okay? So those sort of properties will be within that 11%, okay? But then, just like you, I've seen properties around this borough where it's just unacceptable. And that's why we're talking about bringing some of those properties down and replacing them, regen. But what I can also tell you is that as of autumn and winter this year, we're going to do another stock survey. We're going to survey 30% of stock, and we're doing it this time during a period where damp and mould is at its worst. So this autumn we'll have far better and more accurate data as to where all these problems are. But what I will say to, when I've had meetings with, I had a meeting recently, and one of my first, obviously I'm getting to know all the metrics and everything, so I said, right, can you please show me the performance of our contractors, okay? Now, the performance of our contractors, by the metrics that were provided to me, are pretty good, yeah? A lot of them are very, very good. But if any councillor in this room finds a property that's not acceptable or has had poor repairs, then please get on the phone to me, because I'll be round there before the officers are, okay? So, and please, my phone is there for you to call, because I won't tolerate poor properties in this borough. And I know that I've got a new team in place, a very dynamic and impressive team that I've met, who won't tolerate it either.
Councillor Holloway, do you wish to speak?
Sorry, Madam Mayor, no, I'm happy for colleagues to ask their questions.
Councillor Byrne, do you wish to speak?
Please. First of all, good luck in the job, but we've done the words, all we've got to do is deliver, mate. So, can I ask you, I've had lots of letters and calls from, especially the performing arts circle, that the council sending threatening letters, trying to send the bailiffs in, threatening them with their houses, threatening them with their telly, everything, because they can't pay the council tax, can't pay their rent. And these letters are really threatening, they frighten the life out of people. And they're just going out for no reason. They've got no sympathy for people. They're just, you may say it's nothing to do with housing, but there's a lot of threatening letters going out, and it's a big worry for people about losing their houses. Thank you.
Now, without seeing one of those letters, I can't see the source of it. But if you want to provide, well, if you've got letters where people are being threatened with eviction at the moment, or being threatened with, getting letters from this council, then I want to see them. Okay, but I can't give you an answer because I haven't seen the letter and I don't understand exactly what you're saying at the moment. Okay.
Fairness to the officers, they've got the charities involved, and they're actually giving people grace of like 3 months when you complain, but the letters are still going out. So I'll send you some, Luke. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Councillor Kerrin, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you for your report, Councillor Spillman. I'm pleased to see that Alma Court gets a mention in your report in my ward. It's a really good example of council housing, and I know it's successful because the only casework I get from there is when the bins aren't collected, so that's always a good sign to me. With that in mind, and looking to see more high quality developments like that, we need to be pushing on with delivering decent council homes. So in the last, can you identify any current developments which have had their genesis, design and delivery in the last 5 years?
So what I would say on that is that you've got to understand the context in which you asked that question. Yeah. For a start, the HRA was starved of funds because there were no rent increases. You shake your head, but you voted against a rent increase that would have funded the HRA. Yeah, that was part of your, that was part of your budget. You voted against increases in rent, increases in service charges when Councillor Apothecary was leader. Yeah, the triple lock they called it. Yeah, they voted to starve the housing department of cash for a cheap headline before an election that didn't come. Yeah, so you vote for it. Yeah, if you vote for it, own it. Yeah, that's what I'll say to you. Yeah. And also, we've been in a situation where we've had a pandemic for about 18 months. All of these things have frozen. But I'll tell you one thing, I've given officers scope to come back to me with plans larger than we've seen even in neighbouring boroughs for a long time. I've given them a green light to come back with very ambitious projects, including Thurrock Regeneration Limited. But we need buy-in. Yeah, we need buy-in, and the problem is from you guys is that you talk the talk, and then when something gets proposed, you electioneer against it, and especially the Grays Riverside councillors,
Do you mind? Excuse me. Don't bang, please.
You are the councillors, yeah, who nearly sunk Thurrock Regeneration Limited, with Belmont, and when it comes to Grays Riverside, I could build the Hanging Gardens of Babylon, yeah, in Grays Riverside, and the Grays Riverside councillors would complain there wasn't enough parking.
Councillor Apothecary, would you like to speak?
I would, thank you, Madam Mayor. I had a question, I think, okay. I will just respond to that because I was actually mentioned by name, so I believe under the Constitution I am actually allowed to respond to Councillor Spillman, which is that no, I don't believe that our residents, our tenants, should constantly be having charges upon charges upon charges levied upon them that this Conservative Council has done since you came to power. Now, I know your own government have screwed you over on this one, but that's not my fault. I don't wear the blue rosette every year to try and get them elected, okay? So you have to take responsibility for your own government's actions and the fact that they haven't put...
Please.
So you do have to have a think about what your own government is doing, what you're doing, and the fact that you haven't actually put the investment in this. The housing you had progressed was all developed under the last council, Labour administration. So what we're asking is bring something new forward. Right, I'll move on to my question, which was on something different. Okay, so I was recently approached. I was going to welcome you to the role, Councillor Spillman, but I don't think I will now. No, I do welcome you to the role. That was a joke. I do welcome you to the role. Okay, so I was recently approached by a family from Grays who were forced to accept private accommodation by Housing Solutions that was outside of the borough, dilapidated, and already showing signs of damp and mould before they moved in. And this has all obviously got worse. When I queried why Housing Solutions felt they had discharged their duties to this family, they said that some damp and mould was acceptable. Now, personally, I think Housing Solutions should have said to that landlord, get it cleaned, get it sorted, deal with the root of it. I do not think that their response was acceptable. I've been talking to them for quite some time about this. They sent me photos saying there was no damp and mould, photos their officer took that had evidence of damp and mould, and when I pointed it out, I was told it would be acceptable. I don't think it's acceptable. I think we should be saying to private landlords in those situations, you want our money, or you want our residents' money, do the property up first, and then we'll get people into it. I don't think that's too much to ask, do you?
I don't think this is the forum for casework, but I do agree with you on the main thrust of what you're saying. Of course, that sort of behaviour, if it is as presented, is not acceptable. But you should bring casework through the proper. Yeah, well, you haven't brought it to me, have you, before the chamber? So you've just, which you could have done. Yeah, you could have done that though, couldn't you? But in terms of, and I'll go, no, it's not acceptable. And if you get cases like this, then I'm more than happy to look at them. But I'll go back to what I said before when you made comment on it. You vote against revenue being brought into the housing department and then complain we can't provide services and build houses. I mean, I'm sorry, it is utter nonsense, yeah? But no, I take your welcome as it's intended to my role. I'm glad you've turned up tonight because you didn't turn up during the election. But no, I mean, if you do have these cases, then you can always bring them to me.
Councillor Muldowney, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Spillman, can you tell me whether the Chadwell Clinic site in Ruskin Road is being released for council house development or being sold off to private developers?
I think a lot of these sales are within a consultation process, and they're going through committee. No decision's been made on them. It would surprise me.
Decision has been made.
I mean, so we'll look at through committee, and I'll provide you with a written answer. But you know, whatever we do, you won't be happy because you've been unhappy with us giving farming land to the people that are farming it. So I mean, whatever happens, you won't. I mean, you're up for election, so you're making as much noise as possible. I appreciate that.
Councillor Spillman, would you like to sum up, please?
Oh, yeah, I would do, yeah. I am having far too much fun, you're right. But no, on a serious note, I mean, I enjoy a bit of to and fro in the chamber, but you know that if you've got a serious housing issue, you only have to call me and we'll work on it. You know my passion, my dedication to housing. This is a very, very special opportunity for me to use, the skills and knowledge that I've accrued, but also with the resource of Thurrock Council to try and change things for the better. So if you do need any help with it, please come and see me. It's a very exciting time. I really do think that this housing department's never been in better shape since I've been elected. Financially, it's in a lot better shape, and there's some very, very exciting things to come. And just watch this space because there's going to be some really good announcements for the people of Thurrock. Thank you very much.
Questions from members. We have up to 30 minutes for this item. There are 2 questions to the leader and 10 questions to cabinet members. These can be found on pages 75 to 76 of the agenda. Those questions not dealt with at this meeting, the members to whom the questions is addressed shall provide a written answer as soon as practicable after this meeting. For the benefit of the recording of this meeting, I would like to ask members who have submitted questions to please read out their questions when asked to do so. Question 1 from Councillor Kent to Councillor Gledhill has been withdrawn. Question 2 from Councillor Kent to Councillor Gledhill has been withdrawn. I will now move to the questions received from members to the portfolio holders. Question 1 from Councillor Holloway to Councillor Mainley. As Councillor Mainley has sent his apologies this evening, would Councillor Holloway like to resubmit a question or be provided with a written response?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to resubmit my question for next full council. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 2 from Councillor Pogba-Carey to Councillor Jeffries. Councillor Pogba-Carey, please read out your question set out on page 75 of the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. During the recent strike by refuse crews, what was the total cost of operating 7 bring sites, hiring additional agency staff and using private contractors?
Councillor Jeffries, please respond to the question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for your question. So the total cost for waste collection was approximately 109k. This included the cost of all 7 bin sites, hiring of agency staff, private contractors, Euro bins, trade waste and the additional assisted collections that we put on.
Councillor Pogba-Carey, do you wish to propose a supplementary question?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor, I do. And I'd just like to take the opportunity to welcome Councillor Jeffries to his position, because I don't think I've quite had that chance yet. You're very welcome. So we've had a cost of over £109,000. That's obviously a lot of money. Could have paid for a lot of services. But my second supplementary question is going to focus on a Freedom of Information request published on the 1st of July that suggests that the controversial changes to pay and conditions would have saved around £800,000. Why in that case did the council claim repeatedly during the strike period that it wasn't a cost-saving measure and would not deliver savings? I'm referring to press releases and briefings.
Thank you, Councillor. The changes to pay and conditions and the negotiations that took place were instigated by this group, and what we wanted was to see some changes in the working practices that were changed. But one thing that we were adamant about was there would be no loss of pay for any of our staff. They would not come out of the negotiations the other side with a loss of pay. So it wasn't a cost-cutting measure. It was about bringing working practices up to date to provide a better service for the residents of Thurrock.
Councillor Pothecary, do you wish to pose a second supplementary question, please?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Jeffreys, for your response. So at this point, we have... Sorry, it's really difficult not being able to actually see you as I talk to you. So we have contradictory statements being made across the piece. Sort of 1 minute there aren't any cost savings, next minute we find out it's £800,000. This is either a case of the left hand not knowing what the right hand's doing, or there's been something that's been deliberately misleading for the residents of this borough. Let's be honest, this strike arose because of the council's mismanagement of this proposal. You made a complete hash of it, you've mismanaged the communications and actually put out misleading communications on occasion. Residents had to spend 5 weeks lugging their rubbish around the borough, and you're still struggling to catch up and get bin collections back to normal, and other services, including greening, are still trying to recover. Is it any wonder that residents and staff are losing faith in this administration's ability to deliver a functioning refuse service?
Thank you, Councillor Pothecary. Let's be honest, this strike was politically motivated by the unions and the Labour Party in Thurrock to try and influence the votes at the local elections. It failed. It failed, and I look around at all of the members from the Conservative Party, in particular, I can't see him because of these screens, Councillor Adam Carter. First Conservative councillor elected in Chadwell. During a bin strike, people ignored the politicising of our services. I repeat, we as a group said no one should lose any money. That's what's happened. We've had a change in working practices, bringing us up to date, bringing us a modern service, a modern bin collection service. That's what we've got at the end of this strike.
Is that the answer? Right. Right, let's carry on. Question 3 from Councillor Byrne to Councillor Hooling has been withdrawn. Question 4, Councillor Worrell to Councillor Spillman. Councillor Worrell, please read out your question set out on page 75 of the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let's hope that we go back to a bit of normality and not rudeness. Following recent elections, where all political parties pledged to provide more council homes for Thurrock residents, could the Cabinet member provide the Chamber with his plans for tackling this election pledge?
Yes, I've never been rude to Councillor Worrell. I'm not going to start now. It's obvious that we need to build homes. It's not just something in this borough, it's something across the country. I've spoken to the officers involved. I've asked them to come back with some seriously ambitious plans. I'm very much in favour of bringing Thurrock Regeneration Limited forward. I'm in favour of building, of homes with secure tenancies. I'm also in favour of building houses to sell on right to buy schemes as well, because there are too many people living in their parents' house working full-time who deserve to be able to get on the housing ladder. And that's also going to be one of the key parts of the programme I'd like to bring forward. I also want to see some more partnership working with the private sector, looking for some more work with housing associations, looking into different kinds of builds as well, modular builds as well. We've got a very exciting bid for some modular builds, which I hope to be able to bring you to September Council some information on that. So yeah, there are a lot of plans. It is, I'd say, I said that my main priority was temporary accommodation outside the borough. This is a very, very close second. We sat there equally frustrated with, you know, some of the things that have been brought before us because of, you know, the limited scope that, you know, authorities have had. It's not just Thurrock, it's all around the country, the limited scope we've had. Now is we've got extra room for manoeuvre, and if we're not going to build houses now, like when are we going to? You know, so, and I would say to add to that, that committee, and especially the chair of the committee yourself, will be involved right at the centre of these plans, because we need to get buy-in across the chamber. Otherwise, you know, it just goes, we spend lots and lots of time wasting lots and lots of time having silly political arguments when really we all want the same thing, and that's houses, secure tenancies for families, and houses that people can afford to buy.
Councillor Worrell, do you wish to pose a supplementary question?
Of course, Madam Mayor, of course. And Luke, can I just ask that you contact me over the summer break so that we can get started on that plan? It's a couple of months since I see that written down, that me and you would be working together, and we've still not done that. So if we could make sure that happens before the next scrutiny meeting. So my second question, so there's not been one planning application agreed for new social homes anywhere in Thurrock since 2016. I think we're agreed on that. Homes built since 2016 were agreed under the Labour administration. We've now got that housing development list is dead in the water. 6 of the sites removed, and then I didn't know that the Chadwell one was being sold off until I see the asset list. So, and the rest of them are basically paused or removed or on hold, and they're just not happening, Luke. So after 6 years of administration, and that's not you personally, obviously, because you wasn't a Conservative then, you was the other side of the chamber with us. You couldn't get away with it all night, Luke.
You never asked.
What are your... You talk about these serious, ambitious plans, and you said it in Cabinet last week as well, to kickstart the housing development list. When will we be getting realistic sites brought forward? You know, how soon can we realistically expect that list has some movement? We have divvied and divvied and divvied for years and argued and argued. Please build people these 500 homes that we're promising them. We've missed every government target set, and we're going to have them imposed on us if we don't hurry up.
Thank you, Councillor. Yeah, no. I'm going to be 500 is not the limit of my ambition. To put it mildly, that's not the limit of my ambition, and it shouldn't be the limit of anyone's ambition now. We've got we can borrow through the HRA. We've got the rent income, if you keep voting for it, that comes in increased revenue that we didn't have before. We've got options with TRL. That is the bare minimum of what my ambition is, and all parties in the chamber will be involved at the centre of this decision making. Okay?
Councillor Worrell, do you wish to pose a second supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Luke. That's a breath of fresh air to hear that you have a plan, because we've not had that for years. But what we do need is we need to build homes on the right land, not on parks, green spaces, well-used car parks and community facilities, and I hope you agree. Argent Street and Dell Road, which are both prime pieces of building land, have just been sold off. Had we built on this land ourselves, we would have been some way to build in those council homes that we desperately need. Can you assure residents that selling the family silver will stop, and prime land will be retained for building homes for our residents and not lining the pockets of the greedy land banking developers that we have here in Thurrock?
So regarding the Argent Street site, that is not fit for development, and that was the advice that came from officers. So, but also it went through committee. Yeah, it went through committee, and who was the chair of that committee? It was Oliver Gerrish. Yeah, it went through committee. Very good chair. You know, you could learn a lot from the way he chairs meetings. But it went through committee. Yeah, and there was no objection at that stage. Yeah, so go back and look at the minutes. Yeah, and you'll realise that at no stage did you oppose this until the point it was up for sale. You know, you didn't do your due diligence if you're against this sale. Yeah. It was all in committee. It went to committee. Yeah. Yeah. Your own members are in committee. Like, if they don't do their job, yeah, then it's not anyone else's fault apart from them. But in terms of you know, bringing sites forward, you know, we need. I want to bring sites that will deliver the most houses and give the most people in this borough secure tenancies and homes that they own. And that will be my number one priority. Well, that will solve that problem as well. So,
Right, moving on. Question 5 from Councillor John Kent to Councillor Coxhill has been withdrawn. Question 6 from Councillor Muldaney to Councillor Jeffries. Councillor Muldaney, would please read out the question as set out on page 76 of the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The play equipment in Chadwell St Mary's parks and green spaces is inadequate, old and deteriorating. When will the council commit to investing in new equipment for Chadwell?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for your question. So the parks in Chadwell St Mary are being prioritised through the work of a steering group, which, Councillor, I believe you're a member of, along with Community Forum, Thurrock Play Network and Active Parks teams. The steering group recently agreed that using responses from public consultations establishing what residents wanted from the REC, they would apply for a CEDF grant. This would be supported by spending of monies from 106, the development at the former Greyhound Public House, which have been allocated in line with the Active Parks strategy. I know that the Council has been in regular contact with the Active Parks teams regarding the future funding for Chadwell REC, and I would encourage any community group to make contact with officers from the Recreation and Leisure Services who would be able to support them to attract external funding work together to improve our parks.
Councillor Muldaney, do you wish to pose a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. I originally asked this question in June 2019, and at that time I was promised that investment would be made in the playground on Alsett Heath that municipal year. That didn't happen, although money was found to invest in 14 other parks in other parts of the boroughs. Why did Chadwell miss out on that promised investment, and will the new portfolio holder now make good on his predecessor's promise and ensure investment is made in Chadwell's parks by the end of this municipal year?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. Again, I refer to what Councillor Spillman just said. The monies that were spent that the Council is referring to all went to committee, all were debated, all were discussed with members from the Chamber, including the Labour Party. It was them that decided which parks this money should be spent on. It obviously was decided not to spend in Chadwell, they would spend them elsewhere. So again, as what Councillor Spillman just said, you've got this information, it's there, it's in committee, you were part of that decision as to where that money should be spent.
Councillor Muldaney, do you wish to pose a second supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, to correct you, the money you're referring to, the Section 106 money, was not found by the Council. I had to fight for it alongside the Chadwell Forum, so the Chadwell Forum could bring forward its own play project. This is going to cost the Council nothing. We are using the Section 106 monies to go for match funding. This is all being done by local residents and by the Chadwell Forum. We've had roadblock after roadblock placed in our way, the latest being that the Council now plans to charge the Chadwell Community Forum £2,500 a year for maintaining any 10-piece play area. So will the new portfolio holder work with myself and my colleague, Councillor Chuckwill, to remove the roadblocks preventing this project from moving forward as a matter of a priority? And will he make good on his predecessor's promise by your administration in June 2019 to invest in Chadwell's parks?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. I mean, I would say the Councillor says that no council money is forthcoming. The CDF grant, that's council money, and that's what the group's applying for. And I do find it a bit strange that the councillor brings up this question, because recently she put out a leaflet on council-headed paper to all of her residents, basically congratulating herself on obtaining funding for this park. And I was puzzled. Why did she, put this question out? Why did she put this leaflet out? Then I realised she's up for election next year in Chadwell St Mary. Chadwell St Mary, which is where Councillor Adam Carter just got elected, first Conservative councillor to be elected in Chadwell. She's clearly worried that she's going to go the same way as Labour candidates went in this election. And I'm sure if Councillor Carter has anything to do with the campaign, we will be welcoming another Conservative councillor in Chadwell St Mary.
I'll take that as a no then, no investment for Chadwell's Park.
Question 7 from Councillor Maldoni to Councillor Manley. As Councillor Manley has sent his apologies this evening, would Councillor Maldoni like to resubmit her question or be provided with a written response?
I'd like to resubmit my question, please, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Question 8 from Councillor Kent to Councillor Spillman has been withdrawn. Question 9 from Councillor Byrne to Councillor Mays. Councillor Byrne, please read out your question as set out on page 76 of the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Does the portfolio holder agree with his chair that the new hubs that are proposing IMCs are not fit for purpose and are rubbish? Please.
Councillor Mays, please respond to the question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to start off by looking at what was actually said at that meeting, which was, if you see by the draft minutes, that it states on page 8 that Raoul Chowdhury stated that in response to the Corringham Integrated Medical Centre, it would be existing doctor surgeries from Stamford Lee Hope that would be taking up these spaces. The consultation was being undertaken with GP partners in Corringham, and that there were 2 interested surgeries that would be interested in moving into the new Integrated Medical Centre. Councillor Ralph stated that that was rubbish, and that there was not an additional 2,000 extra appointments and that Corringham critically needed. Extra spaces for doctors' appointments and would be not fit for purpose in Corringham and nor in Purfleet if those were the plans. So actually he wasn't saying that the IMC plan wasn't fit for purpose, he was just upset at the fact that there wasn't an additional 2,000 spaces. Thank you.
Councillor Byrne, do you wish to pose a supplementary question?
Yes, with the hubs, I've compared the new Corringham hub to a doctor's surgery in Stamford. The one in Stamford's got a larger car park, it's got on-site pharmacy, that's for minor ops, phlebotomy, So can you explain the difference between not quite a hospital hub and an actual doctor's surgery, please?
Thank you, Councillor. The IMCs will be a transformative way of dealing with primary care. And although you've said a few things there, there's a lot more that the IMCs will do when it brings in things like phlebotomy and a host of other primary care needs. So the idea is that it won't just be a situation for a space for GPs appointments. It is not just another surgery. It is a transformation of the way that primary care is delivered, because there isn't a magic GP tree. We can't just grow more GPs or just pop down the shop and get some more. So what we need to do, and this isn't just Thurrock based, this is a national issue. So what we need to do is look at the capacity that we've got and look and think outside the box. Look at all the things that we can do to actually make sure that our residents get the best primary care they can do with what we've got. Thank you.
Councillor Byrne, do you wish to pose a second supplementary question?
Yes, please. The question is, will these new hubs provide more than the doctor's surgery we've already got at Stamford Heathengate, which is performing that and some? So will it provide more services than our doctor's surgeries in Corringham?
Yes, and simply because of the fact that Yeah, I know, thank you. I know you like a yes or no answer, so yes, so thank you.
Right, question 10 from Councillor Piccolo to Councillor Hewlin. Councillor Piccolo, please read out your question as set out on page 76 of the agenda.
Madam Mayor, there seems to be some error here because I actually withdrew that question because it was time relevant. So I did ask to withdraw that question.
Okay.
So there's an error there.
We'll skip that one. Okay. Item 16, reports from members representing the council on outside bodies. Does any member who represent council on the outside bodies wish to present a report? No? Right, minutes of committees. These are listed on the agenda, contents page. Motions, update report. The next item can be found on page 77 of the agenda and is an update on ongoing motions to the council. Item 19. Councillor Worrell, do you wish to pose and speak to your motion as printed on page 79 of the agenda?
Yes, I do, Madam Mayor. This is a simple motion, Madam Mayor. I'm asking Council to help residents of Ward Avenue, Bradley Avenue, College Avenue and Cresthill Avenue. Monday to Friday, twice a day, residents living on these roads are effectively held prisoner. If they leave their homes, they cannot get back to them. This is caused during school drop-off and pick-up times, and frankly, they have had enough. Residents describe this as a daily nightmare and they're at their wits' end. Footpaths become unpassable and inconsiderate drivers literally park across drop curbs on the footpaths and grass verges outside these residents' homes. Those with pushchairs and mobility scooters are forced to walk or drive in the road, which I'm quite sure you will agree is not acceptable and frankly is quite dangerous. Home deliveries are an absolute nightmare, and I recently spoke to a resident who had to reorganise the delivery of her new furniture because her driveway had been blocked and the car left unattended while the person went into the school. Residents themselves have organised and submitted their own petition, which demonstrates how passionately they feel about this parking problem. Parking restrictions outside the school are neither adhered to or enforced by the school or the enforcement officers who only attend the school on an agreed rota. Every councillor will have a school in their ward that has similar issues, but think of those issues for one school and times it by 3. These are 3 large schools just a walk from each other with the same start and finish times. This is not an ordinary situation, and our residents on these roads need our help and support. This motion is a call to the Cabinet to endeavour to work with these 3 schools, recommending that they create a single sustainable travel plan covering these 3 schools. In addition, I ask Council to call on Cabinet to increase parking enforcement around these schools and call for the drop-off zone at St Thomas's of Canterbury School to be reinstated in accordance with the planning obligations that were set. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is that seconded? Councillor Kerrin, would you like to speak now or reserve your right to speak until a later debate?
I reserve my right, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does any other member wish to speak on this motion? Councillor Gledhill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd like to thank the member for submitting it. Whilst it is a simple motion, unfortunately it's not a motion that I can support. I do fully appreciate every single problem that residents may be going through in this area. I myself live opposite a school. I know exactly what it's like having to put on the notes for delivery. Please try and avoid school times. I know what it's like not to have my bins collected because they can't get down there at school times because they're running late from elsewhere. I know what it's like to have visitors turn up and have to park quite some way away and then walk back with shopping or whatever because, again, they can't get directly outside my house. Take out the fact it's me. It doesn't really matter it's me. There are residents all over the borough. Fortunately, it's one of those things we have to endure. When schools were built, most parents didn't drive to school. it was quite rare, actually, if I remember that far back to school, to actually see someone being picked up by their parents. They were normally picked up by foot and walked home. Unfortunately, life has changed. Unfortunately, we cannot change the streets surrounding schools to accommodate this. Now, one of the things it says in here is to endeavour working with the three schools to recommend they create a single sustainable travel plan. Again, it's not for the Cabinet or indeed the Council to insist or work with schools to outline where and how they should do their travel plans. It is down to them. And I would assume 3 schools that have been coexisting for probably longer than I've been alive would be speaking to each other anyway and saying, actually, what can we do for this? Because there is benefits from putting these sustainable travel plans in that could help the schools, could help get parents there and away much faster. But it shouldn't be for the council to insist. You know, it's one of the reasons that Labour brought in the academy process, is to allow academies to make their own decisions. And indeed, this is one of them. Now I'm going to move on to the enforcement. Yes, there may well be 3 schools there. Yes, there may well be 1 visit by the enforcement officers in relation to that particular area. There are other schools that are clustered within the borough who have exactly the same problems, that have exactly the same amount of enforcement action that can take place. It's a limited group of officers, they're a dedicated bunch, and of course they're also expected to work late into the evening, overnight, to tackle the problems with HGV parking and all the other problems that this borough has seen an increase in over the years. So with that limited resource, I'm sorry, I don't want them taken away from Little Thurrock Primary School. I don't want them taken away from Thameside opposite my home. I don't want them taken away specifically from any other school to be able to put extra resources into this 3-school cluster. But finally, the only one thing I can agree on this bit is that the drop-off zone at St Thomas's of Canterbury School be reinstated in accordance with their planning obligations. This is something that should be taken up as a matter of urgency, not only by the ward members, but indeed any member of this chamber. A lot of schools decided they wanted these drop-off points, and a lot of schools are not allowing them to happen. It doesn't matter whether it's these 3 schools, this one particular school, the school opposite me, and I'm sure Councillor Redsall will chip in with other schools in her ward, and I'm sure everyone else will. This is something that needs to be taken up, and I promise the elected member I will take that up first thing tomorrow and ask our planning officers to go round and ensure that the planning conditions are fully adhered to. But in closing, unfortunately, I just cannot agree to this motion because of the impact it will have on all the other schools and the fact it's asking us to do something which is not within our remit and gift and really should be down to the schools to be talking together as probably there have been over the past couple of decades. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is there any other member who wish to speak? Councillor Ward, do you wish to sum up? Oh, Councillor Kerry wants to speak. Sorry, I didn't see your echo.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm very happy to second and support this motion. I believe it's really important that the council works on enforcement, because at the heart of this, it's an enforcement issue. Okay, because it's not about taking resource away from one school or one geographical area to another. It's about managing it so that enforcement is spread fairly across the borough. This is important for the residents who live on the streets. It's important for the parents who are dropping off. And it's really important that we send out a message that we are supporting the schools with this, because what they want is they want it to be enforced. And that's all this motion is asking for. So I think it's really an easy one to support, and I would urge everyone in the chamber to back it.
Councillor Worrell, do you wish to sum up?
Thanks, Madam Mayor, and I am really, really disappointed to hear that this didn't have the leaders' support. And I really did choose the words with the monitoring officer, and that was that Cabinet endeavoured to work with the schools. It wasn't forcing you to do anything, it was just asking you to support those residents on those roads so that they could live in their homes peacefully. 3 schools all in the same area. You know, it's not rocket science to be able to at least try to do this. And I'm really disappointed, and I'm hoping that others in the chamber that do know these areas and how dangerous it is, that you can only be single file down those roads, you can't get in and out. It's an absolute nightmare. And I'm just shocked. I really thought that this was a simple one. I really did. I didn't come here for an argument, Madam Mayor. I really thought that this was going to get the back in. So I'm hoping, as I look across the chamber, that people will support this, because it is only endeavouring to work. I'm not pressing you to do anything more. Our enforcement officers should be enforcing, and I'm making sure, you know, that, and I'm seeing that it's really not being done. So I'm disappointed that you won't, but I'm hoping that others will vote for this motion, Madam Mayor.
Right, thank you. Okay, any other member wish to speak? Councillor Rinser? Okay. Right, we will proceed to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. All those... No, oh, I can't. Right. All those against? Sorry? Yeah, the motion's passed. All those against. The result of the vote is as follows. Right. The motion, the majority have voted against. That concludes the business of the meeting this evening, and now declare this meeting closed. I would now like to take a 10-minute break before the start of July Council. Thank you. Right, are we all in? Right, is everybody in? I'm waiting for Councillor Bowman. Where is he? Yeah. Should we start?
Use the gavel.
Where is he?
In front of you. Right there.
No, talk about Gary. All right, okay. Right, ready to go. I would like to start July Council by reminding everyone present that this meeting is being live streamed to the Council's online webcast channel. Apologies for absence. I have received apologies of absence from Councillor Abbas, Baker, Councillor Kathy Kent, Councillor John Kent, Councillor Mainley, and Councillor Massey and Councillor Salmons. Are there any other apologies of absence? Sorry, I forgot to...
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Still Councillor Churchman.
Right, thank you. Right. Item 2, minutes. Due to the timing of the publication of the minutes of the 30th June 2021, will be included in 22nd September 2021 agenda. Item 3, items of urgent business. I have not agreed any items of urgent business. Declaration of interest. Are there any declarations of interest to be made? No. Announcement on behalf of the Mayor, the Leader of the Council. I would like to take a moment to remember the fallen of World War II on page 7 of the agenda. Jocelyn Leonard A. Lowe Richard. Barrett Henry Thomas. Cheeseman William J. Milford Alfred R. I'd just like to make a couple of announcements. I'd just like to say it's nice to welcome you all back into the chambers for full council again, and to let you know that I haven't done any food this time, but hopefully in September we can go back to normal, and I will do food at the beginning of the meeting in the Mayor's Parlour. As I have not done any food today, I will be making a donation to Thurrock carers. I would like to inform you that I will be holding an afternoon tea raising money for the event at Stifford Hall on the 15th of September for my two charities, Little Havens and Thurrock Over 50s. Thank you. Councillor Gledhill, as leader of the council, do you wish to make any announcements?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do. I'm going to really trim down what I've already trimmed down quite a lot already, just mainly because of the heat and discomfort. I'm sure that all members here shared the excitement and happiness this week of the learning that Grays and Tilbury would benefit from the Government's Towns Fund, and they would benefit from 19.9 million and 22.8 million respectively. This is an unprecedented funding and will give a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to transform both Grays and Tilbury. This funding will deliver a game-changing regeneration which will have social and economic benefits for residents, not just now but way into the future. Briefly, the Grays proposals include reconnecting the town with the river, improving the station gateway, creating a brand new riverfront destination, possibly including a maritime activity centre and jetty. Tilbury, and an entertainment space. I'm so glad I've cut this down. In Tilbury, the board also recommended reconnecting the town with the river, suggested schemes again with a new jetty to help extended river bus services, which I'll come on to in a minute. Steps to an open beach to create better access to the riverfront, and access much better to the historic Tilbury Fort, allowing much easier access to this ancient monument. Again, I'm going to extend my thanks, I'm sure every member here will do, to the Towns Fund boards, to the officers and members who have made this happen, and it's now for us to continue this great work and deliver these great plans as soon as we possibly can. Moving very quickly on from the jetty aspects of it, pleased to announce on the 7th and 14th of August, Thames Clipper will be running what they call an Uber boat from Tilbury to the city, and obviously via the river, taking just 60 minutes to get from here to the heart of the capital. The service leaves at 10 a.m, returns at 17:30, arriving back to Tilbury at 18:30. As mentioned, with the plans for the possible jetties as part of the Towns Fund applications, this will show how much residents would love to start using the river to get to and from our capital. Moving on to the COVID update, like the rest of the country, we've seen significant growth in the number of people testing positive for COVID in the borough. But like the rest of the country, this growth has fortunately not been reflected into the number of people who have been hospitalised and dying compared with previous peaks. As we've seen this week, the lifting of the restrictions now is not the time to throw the caution to the wind. We need to be mindful of the ongoing risk of coronavirus and on other people's decisions whether or not they wish to wear masks in public places or indoors at all. What is clear is that the vaccination is an extremely important factor in our journey through this summer. If you've had your first dose, please get ready for your second dose as soon as your appointment is listed. For those who are under 18, including those under 18, over 18, I'll get this right in a minute, I would say do not hesitate to get a vaccine. I know you're not going to take it from an over 50-year-old man to do the right thing, but if you do the right thing, you're not just protecting you, you're protecting your friends and your family. There are going to be more walk-in vaccination centres, both at Chadwell and Stifford Glaze as we go through, that will just be offering walk-in sessions, something that's been really, really well received. But I need to put that caution on there. Remember, double vaccination isn't immunity to COVID-19. It does help stop the spread, and in most cases, for all those that do contract the virus after a double vaccination, it does mean they're less likely to be seriously affected, but that doesn't mean they won't be affected. So even if you are double dosed, you still need to take your own personal level of acceptability of the risk. So as of Monday, we have 485 people tested positive for COVID-19. We have a rate of 278 per 100,000 people tested. We are 127th out of the upper tier local authorities in the country. 177,555 vaccines have been given. 1,000 101,723 first doses and 75,832 second doses. And finally, and I'm sure everybody in the chamber would like to say this, I'm going to extend my thanks to the England football team following their tremendous performance at the Euros. This is the best result the men's team have had in a major international competition since many of us, including myself, were born. The entire team truly did us proud and really showed, determination will pay off. Okay, we didn't get the result that we all would have liked. As everybody knows, what I know about football, you can write on the back of a stamp with a big margin, top, bottom, left and right. However, even I tuned in for the final penalties, and they did an absolute brilliant job and should have made every single person in this country proud. And I'd just like to extend our thanks to them from everybody in this chamber and probably every single person in Thurrock. Well done, and better luck next time. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. I'd just like to announce that if any gentlemen who are wearing jackets would like to remove them, because it's extremely hot in here tonight. I'm in agreement with it. I'm sweating. Right. Right, questions from item 6, questions from members of the public. No public questions have been received. Item 7, petitions from members of the public and councillors. Please be advised, in accordance with the council's petition scheme, 2 notices of petitions have been received this evening. Mr Williams, would you please make your way to the chamber, into the chamber to present your petition regards to Save Thameside Complex? You have 2 minutes to speak. Please, you leave your petition with Democratic Service when finished. Thank you.
Thameside Theatre. The presentation at last Cabinet meeting seemed to show total misunderstanding of the theatre's Thameside to You new streaming service funded by the Cultural Recovery Fund. The service is designed to bring quality entertainment to those who are unable or cannot come to the theatre. To work, it needs the theatre to operate the streaming service and was never intended to replace the real theatre experience that audiences annually of over 40,000 people enjoy, with staged professional shows, quality staged amateur drama and many community offerings that all support small local businesses. Like most theatres currently, it now brings a virtual offering to the community while the pandemic lasts, not as a substitute for real theatre. In that meeting, members spoke of transparency, but with no detailed breakdown reports to support your claimed 16 million repair costs and £500,000 running costs. Fact, in Councillor Hewlin's recent interview, she quoted 17 million and gave wrong information on the building, e.g. a lift capacity of 1 person at a time. Wrong. There are 2 lifts, pre-COVID capacity of 8 persons weight in each lift, and dedicated space for 10 wheelchairs in the theatre. Grossly wrong basic information like this and others at Cabinet brings into question the ability of all members to make any sound decision on the theatre. On the Council's webpage for the Greystown Fund, you state that the Theatre Museum Library and civic offices are at the heart of the town. The civic offices have had a massive investment, yet the policy is for its staff to work from home. The library is likely to be reduced to 2 PCs and 20 bookcases in the new building, hopelessly insufficient for the size of the community it serves, and no theatre and museum provision. We can only hope that now you have the funding, your plans for the investment in the theatre and museum as promised in 2017 will be implemented. Your Thurrock quotes Councillor Coxall in response to residents' objections during a council meeting discussing the new council officers, saying, "We are here as leaders to say what is best." If councillors take such a massive decision on plain wrong facts, not just as those noted above, then they do a grave disservice to the people of Thurrock and beyond and lose all credibility as a council to say what is best to anyone at all. Madam Chairman, I'm obliged for your time. Here is the petition.
Councillor Muldowney, would you now please present your petition in regards to the petition against the proposed sale of the 6.8 acres of Greenfield opposite Cole Avenue, RN 144JQ, by Thurrock Council? You have 2 minutes to speak. Please, you leave your petition with Democratic Services when finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to present this petition, which is against the sale of the land opposite Cole Avenue, also known as Flat Iron Fields. Madam Mayor, this land, which was released for sale by Cabinet with 7 days public notice on the 7th of July 2021, was left in trust to Thurrock Council in the will of Miss Elsie Florence Grover for the benefit of the children of Thurrock. It is not the Council's land to sell and should never have been on a list of assets for sale by them. Madam Mayor, the Chamber will have already heard how this administration has been throwing roadblocks in the way of local residents and councillors trying to improve facilities for Chadwell's children. Now we hear they are selling off land held in trust by them for the children of Chadwell. Council officers were made aware of the true status of the land immediately this became apparent, but despite numerous inquiries and promises at the time of writing, I have not received confirmation that this land sale has been halted as requested. This deafening silence and lack of transparency on the part of Thurrock Council is unacceptable, and residents deserve better. For an administration that bangs on about transparency and sunlight being the best disinfectant, it's an absolute travesty that neither residents or councillors can get a straight answer about this land. Madam Mayor, documents have been provided to the Council to prove that this land is not theirs to sell. I call upon the Council to return this land to the people of Thurrock and prioritise investment to turn it into a children's playground in line with the spirit of Miss Elsie Florence Grover's will. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 8, update report in respect of those petitions presented at Council and Council offices. This report can be found on pages 11 to 12 on the agenda and is information on the status of petitions handed in at council meetings and council offices. Item 9, appointments to committees and outstanding side bodies and statutory and other panels. Councillor Gledhill, do you wish to make any changes to appointments previously made?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At this time, only one that I can confirm, and that's to appoint Councillor Tandy to SACRA, effective immediately, please. Thank you.
Councillor Holloway, do you wish to make any announcements?
No, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Byrne, do you wish to know? Thank you. Right. Is there any member in disagreement with the nominations made? No. Item 10, to receive report from the Cabinet members. Councillor Johnson, as Cabinet Member for Education and Children's Social Care, would you please introduce your report? This report can be found on pages 13 to 38 of the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and good evening to you all. I will begin by placing on record my sincere thanks to all key workers in general, but in context of this report, to educators and children's service providers for the absolutely amazing way you continue to deliver to our borough's children during what has been unprecedented times. Your commitment to duty does you proud. I would also add my thanks to the Conservative government in agreeing to support the free school meals over the summer, and this, combined with the holiday activities provision over a 4-week period with lunch supplied, should ensure those eligible will continue to receive good quality meals. Although not the first portfolio holders report I have delivered to full council, rather, as the report states, the first relating to my new department, I am privileged to be doing so, as the whole area of education and therefore children's services is very important to me, and it is equally important that as an authority we do all we can to support not just equality across our children's services, but also quality learning across all strands, including adult education. One of my colleagues who sits very close to me uses a phrase to describe a certain report of his as a rear view mirror look at what the department has achieved over the last financial year. So I hope he doesn't mind, as I'm using that same phrase to suggest that having digested this report, which I hope you have all done, is exactly what it does. I'm struck by the amazing partnership working between the local authority and admittedly few schools and youth provisions I've been able to visit so far, but it is my intention to visit as many as possible, as many as I can during my term of office, and I have no reason to believe that the close partnership working will not be echoed throughout. Notwithstanding the rear view content in the body of the report, I will be concentrating this evening on my key strategic points for the coming year. However, there are a few milestones I would like to mention and put my thanks on record to the staff and member engagement in making them happen. There is the wonderful Head Start housing project, which goes an awful long way in ensuring our young school leavers have a safe and secure base, which, if I'm not mistaken, is now a finalist for an MJ award, I believe. And also the fantastic policy of exempting foster carers here in Thurrock from council tax, in the hope that as an authority we may actually foster more of them from right here in Thurrock. Whilst I cannot also let go of the fact that Thurrock school pupils, despite the many challenges faced this year, have shown real resilience and some truly fantastic results. We must continue to support children, young people and their families or carers as we begin the recovery phase regarding COVID-19. And it is important that we look at all ways to bridge that gap, not only in education, but in the social skills blunted by isolation. I also believe that it is extremely important that all our services and that of our partners ensure parents and carers are involved as much as possible, as parenting is not necessarily something you can be trained to excel at, so all early help and intervention is very important. It's also important that we work collaboratively with the homelessness team to ensure all investigative work is undertaken as early as possible to identify any households with children under threat of homelessness and put measures in place to stop this becoming a reality. I will be looking to expand SEND education provision within Thurrock schools, and will be discussing this with them on my various visits, as it must be all-inclusive. And as part of this, I will be looking to officers to find ways of improving the speed of ECHP assessments, even though I must add we are currently performing above national timescales. We have many ports in our boroughs, and as such, we do see our fair share of unaccompanied asylum seeker children. Therefore, we must ensure we participate fully in the agreement across the east of England and provide good corporate parenting to these, and indeed all of our children looked after. And I would look especially here to our Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee to scrutinise our efforts. We will continue to explore best ways of expanding our Thurrock-based foster carers and adopters by building on our already exciting ideas for retention and recruitment. Quite recently, we agreed to create a committee to expand on the Prevent Working Group by giving them the remit to include investigations into things like preventing unaccompanied asylum seeker children being lured into human trafficking or gang association. And this is a committee I look very much forward to hearing from with their comments and proposals as we go forward. We will also continue to ensure we have enough school places required and look to improve our placement in first choice schools, although our placement is already at a high percentage. Our pupil place planning document is widely used by stakeholders, such as developers and educational providers, and the Council is committed to ensuring that we have a clear process in the decision making around meeting local demand, which will go a long way in ensuring the good educational outcomes for our children and young people of Thurrock. Happy to take any questions, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Muldowney, as Shadow Portfolio Holder and as Chair of the Children's Services Overview and Scrutiny Committee, do you have any questions to ask the portfolio holder?
Yes, I do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you, Councillor Johnson, for your report, and can I welcome you to your new portfolio. I would also like to add my thanks to all our staff working in schools and in social services for their extraordinary hard work this year, and to our children for giving up a lot to keep their parents and grandparents and older members of the community in particular safe. I'm proud that the care and safety of Thurrock's children has always been a cross-party priority. I'm sure the portfolio holder agrees with me that no Thurrock child should be going to school or going to bed hungry, and no Thurrock parents should be having to choose between themselves or their children having enough to eat. In that spirit, will the portfolio holder join me in making addressing child poverty one of his key priorities this year, and lend his full support to refreshing Thurrock's child poverty strategy and setting new and ambitious targets to tackle child poverty in our area?
I suppose if we're going to look for one-word answers, yes, of course, but this is a post-COVID world and we have an awful lot to do. We know that, as I said in my report, not just for the education, not just for social isolation, but poverty becomes a long way into it as well. That's why I've said we're going to be working very, very close with the homelessness team to ensure that no households that have children involved do become homeless. We're going to stop that before it happens. So yes, obviously I agree that that's a priority for me, but I think it's a natural priority that we will look at here in Thurrock. Sorry.
Councillor Muldowney, do you have any further questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Johnson. I look forward to working with you on that in the year to come. Regarding school expansion, the new academy Alsett Heath is being built within 200 metres of the construction zone of the proposed Lower Thames crossing. If this road goes ahead, this will mean that children will be going to school next to a building site, basically, for the next 6 years, with all the health and safety concerns that brings. Is the portfolio holder aware of this, and what action will he be taking to mitigate the health and safety impacts on children attending this school?
I'm not sure the health and safety impact comes under my actual portfolio, but obviously should the Lower Thames crossing go ahead, and obviously we don't know whether that's going to be the case or not, that will have to be looked at as and when they put their plans forward, and we can actually say, well, this is what, this is how close you're going to be to the school, this is what we need put in place, this is what we insist goes in. That's why, although we are saying no to the Lower Thames crossing as such, we do need to start talking to these people more clearly and seeing exactly what we can get from it should it happen.
Councillor Muldowney, do you have further questions?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Cabinet papers reveal that cost savings are to be made from a comprehensive review of the education service. Can you tell me what you mean by a comprehensive review of the education service, and how many jobs will be lost as a result?
No, I can't tell you that, Councillor. I don't have a crystal ball, I'm afraid. I've only just taken over the portfolio as well. But the savings in the budget report over the next 2 years are proposals that are still being worked up. And we'll really try to do as much as possible through transformation work and just working smarter. And those I would expect them to be presented to your Children ONS committee anyway. And I think the next one's on the 12th of October. So you could well see something coming towards them then now. But the children's social care budget as well, we would expect the service to remain good, but I will assure Council that we would never intentionally offer an unsafe service and remain totally committed to vulnerable children. I don't really think I can answer any clearer than that until we know more.
Councillor Holloway, do you wish to speak? No? Councillor Byrne?
Yes, Madam Mayor. We're saying for all our new cabinet members, we have to give them time to deliver on their promises. They're all finding their feet, so I think we shouldn't criticise. I'm not going to criticise anyway until they've found their feet and they prove they can deliver or not. Then we can hammer them. So thank you.
Don't criticise me now because I can blame it on James.
It was fine when I was there.
Councillor Worrell, would you like to speak?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'd like to ask a question on Head Start housing, and I'd like to congratulate Councillor Holden because I believe it was his baby that actually took this forward, and he's always been really passionate about the work around care leavers. So I think that where praise is due, praise should be given, and it is an amazing little service for the care leavers. And considering that we have about 300, I believe, children in care, I just wonder whether the number, which we've got 26 properties, is clearly not enough, I don't think, and we should be having ambitions to expand that. So you talked about working with the homeless team about making sure no young person becomes homeless. I'm just surprised that you didn't make that your priority when it was your housing portfolio and you could have stopped it anyway. But could you tell me what work you will be doing with Councillor Spillman to make sure that we grow this Head Start housing, because it is, after all, a really, really needed and growing problem that we will face. And I don't want to see any young person in Thurrock going from care to nobody cares. They should be looked after as a key priority.
I think you said something about the 26 properties not being enough. Totally agree with you. But we've got a housing delivery paper now that's going through. As long as you don't fight it and kick and spit and everything about it, then we'll see, TRL will hopefully deliver these for us. It is certainly an ambition of mine to work very closely with Councillor Spielman, as I did with Councillor Howden when I had the housing portfolio to get the housing start off the ground anyway. So we will work really, really closely. Yes, 26 is not enough. I'm pinning a lot of hopes on TRL being able to deliver some more of those for us.
Councillor Pearce, do you wish to speak?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Johnson, for your report. Regarding your report on the Harrier Free School in Aveley, I'd like to ask, why do we need another school in Aveley when we've got quite a few already? Or I'm assuming there might be housing numbers rising in the very near future. Thank you.
Regarding housing numbers, Councillor Pearce, yes, I'm sure they will be rising in the very near future. In all honesty, with the schools, if they're free schools, we don't really have a lot over it. But as you saw in my report, we are trying to keep that, how can I put it, we're trying to keep that conversation going, so we are at the heart of looking at our PPP, and putting it to them and proving our point that whether we need a school, whether we don't need a school. And as long as we can keep that conversation open, then we will get the schools we need, or we'll not have the schools that we don't need.
Councillor Wenzel, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not sure what portfolio Councillor Johnson's got tonight, housing or education. Thank you for the report, Councillor Johnson. Can I just ask if you could let the Chamber know how many children are homeschooled in Thurrock, and if the pandemic has made more children stay at home to be homeschooled? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Whilst there is some reference to this in the body of the report, but I do actually have some updated numbers to hand, because we only recently presented this information to the Brighter Futures Partnership. And yes, I can certainly confirm that we have seen an unprecedented increase of homeschool educated cases. But I think I have to stress this is a reflection of a whole national increase. It's not just here in Thurrock. If I break it down, there were only 19 cases recorded in September 2019, which quickly jumped to 103 in September 2020, and this continues to grow with over 150 new cases recorded in the first term alone for the academic year 2021. In answer to your actual numbers, there are currently approximately 370 cases, which will reduce by about 50 at the end of this academic year due to students finishing their education. And we do believe that the COVID-19 pandemic is the overwhelming reason for such an increase, with parents being worried about sending the children back to school when they first reopened in September 2020. But I do have to say, it must be said, some parents have actually reported finding their experience of home educating rewarding during lockdown and have decided to continue. But I am pleased to report that 140 children did return to school education in this academic year, which is obviously where we would prefer our children to be educated. Thank you.
Councillor Johnson, will you please sum up?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. In summing up, I have to reiterate, the past year or so has been an extremely challenging time, and we have faced global health crisis, which hopefully we'll never face again. But despite this, Thurrock has some very exciting regeneration programmes, and we are committed to ensuring that we have high quality educational opportunities right across the borough, and I've asked officers to look at the possibility of sponsoring a part of a fair debt summit in conjunction with our finance portfolio, haven't mentioned it to him yet, but which we would see financial responsibilities and outcomes explained to our young people to help stave off financial problems in adulthood. So thank you all for listening.
Thank you. Item 11. The second portfolio holders report will be from Councillor Hooley. As Cabinet Member for Adults and Communities, would you please introduce your report? This report can be found on pages 39 to 60 of the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This past year has seen some very difficult times for staff and residents alike, with loss of loved ones, and my heart goes out to all those affected by this virus. COVID had also, in very stressful times, shown us our strengths and ability to not just be flexible and react to situations, but to proactively lead as a borough, continuing to support Thurrock's residents throughout the pandemic. Behind every change to bubbles, lockdowns and guidelines was a myriad of paperwork to interpret and protocols to adhere to. We'll always owe a debt of gratitude to those serving this borough, from frontline workers across all services, the countless charity organisations and volunteers, TCA, NHS, Cabinet, councillors across all parties, officers, directors, right up to our CEO. Team Thurrock extends far beyond these walls, and it is our honesty, openness and above all trust in each other across all areas that has got us through and kept us ahead of the curve. National news was dominated by stories of PPE. Our council led by taking responsibility for providing PPE to other services, informal carers and community groups. Our council led a multi-agency hub to oversee COVID protocols and manage exposures and outbreaks. Our council started enhanced testing protocols for care home workers months before national arrangements were made. Our council facilitated 24/7 access to public health advice. Our council worked with CVS to form Thurrock's Coronavirus Community Action Centre, supporting over 5,000 very vulnerable residents. Our council set up a home to support people discharged from hospital who couldn't go home because of self-isolating. We did that in the first wave. Other authorities didn't manage it until the second wave. By then, we were established as leaders and able to support partners across Essex. At the end of the first wave, we had one of the lowest death rates in the country, and when the Kent virus variation hit, we experienced an outbreak at Collins House with over 70% of staff affected, and it was our Team Thurrock resilience that got us through, with staff from other service areas volunteering to provide support. Ian Wake and I only recently have taken over adult social services, so I want to thank both Councillor Haldon and Roger Harris for their hard work and dedication last year, providing us with a solid base to build on this year. For example, successful pilot schemes of health and wellbeing teams in Tilbury and Chadwell, social work apprenticeships offering career progression, giving our council one of the lowest staff turnover rates in the UK. Working with the voluntary sector and other health partners to increase the ability to access mental health care and support. We can now go forward with our innovative health and wellbeing teams and start to transform social care with a new improved way of delivering a strength-based and, more importantly, flexible care package to residents based on understanding needs through long-term care relationships, proven to impact positively on quality of life with a 7-fold reduction in GP appointments and 3 times fewer hospital admissions compared to those receiving standard domiciliary care. The Micro Enterprise Scheme won national awards. The scheme has been locally provided personal and flexible support to residents. They are key to changing adult social provision, offering lunch clubs, handymen, gardeners, and giving us a truly collaborative approach to healthcare transformation. It's been a tough year for libraries with lockdowns and changing guidelines. Staff helped operate the TCCA Centre, and access to libraries has been sporadic and difficult. But during times of closure, we have facilitated befriending services and outreach supply by phone, online and hand delivering. We've also joined a library consortium and installed a new management system, giving us access to thousands, not just hundreds, of e-books, audiobooks and magazine publications. Staff lifestyle changes, retirement, sickness and self-isolating has taken its toll, and it will not be surprising to hear we are reviewing the situation to see how best to improve outcomes. During this last year, our arts and culture team and museum volunteers have been amazing. rearranging and then rearranging bookings, creating educational packages and interactive online offers for students, teachers and care homes, even managing to research and have outdoor museum exhibitions. The Thameside to You team have focused on virtual outdoor offers and taking arts and culture projects to communities. This council is particularly supportive of community-led projects and continues to support creative people and places in their bid to Arts England for funding. We're on a road to recovery with difficult decisions to be made. We are proud of our collaborative community approach, and we will continue to work with partners to deliver community-driven arts and heritage across the borough in ways that improve the quality of life, health and well-being of all residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rolfe, as Chair of Health and Wellbeing Overview and Scrutiny Committee, would you like to speak?
No questions, thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Little, as Chair of Corporate Overview and Scrutiny Committee, would you like to speak?
No, Madam Mayor, no question, thank you.
Councillor Holloway, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify, am I doing this as standing in for the leader, or am I doing it as the shadow portfolio holder for adult social care, just to clarify?
Deputy Leader, I think.
Okay, I'll ask that question first and then pose the questions that I get as the shadow after that. Thank you, Councillor Hewlin, for your report. Bearing in mind the strength of feeling against closing the Thameside Theatre, not just this evening, but in the week since the closure's been confirmed, will you reverse the decision?
No decision has been made. We've told you this. This paper that came was all about giving us the opportunity to be open and frank with the community and cross-party to make decisions going forward about the Thameside building. I'm responsible for arts and culture, and part of that is the theatre offer, and officers and directors are working on ways of providing that offer in alternative venues maybe, or in community halls, or maybe there's a community group out there that wants to come forward and discuss with Councillor Cockshaw and I how they could take the Thameside Theatre forward within that building and take on the building. We're open to these conversations right across party. We're waiting for reports to come from officers before Cabinet make any kind of decisions in September.
Councillor Byrne, do you wish to speak?
Yes. Yeah, 17, the arts. Can we stop pretending that we've got any interest in the arts in the local level? Even the government said our artists should be trained for proper jobs. You're closing our only theatre. The demo outside proves it. There's a petition with 4,000 signatures. You slash funding. You silence the Opera House Choir. Our Thurrock Performing Arts schools excel at World Championships level. The old Mayor's office completely ignores any success within the arts within Thurrock. If it's football, the Chamber's all over it. If it's sport, the Chamber's all over it. The only interest in our performing arts this year has been, as I said before, sending out the debt collector. So that's your only interest in performing arts, is getting the money out of them.
Right. Councillor Holloway, it was a shadow portfolio holder for adults.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'd just quickly like to put on record a huge thanks
Sorry, Madam
to...
Mayor, did you want me to respond to Councillor Burns or not?
All right, sorry. All right. Yeah, respond, please. Sorry.
Well, he did ask a question. He asked me if I was interested in arts or not. And of course I am, otherwise I wouldn't be the Cabinet member for it. Fighting for a theatre provision and an arts and culture offer right across this borough. Collaborative working with arts groups like Creative People and Places to get arts funding. Working with community centres, working on projects like Windrush. I could go on and on naming them, but we need to get this meeting done. But yes, I'm interested in the arts.
Right, Councillor Holloway.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As I was saying, a huge thank you to all the staff that have been truly phenomenal throughout the pandemic and continue to be fantastic. My first question, Councillor Hewlin, is bearing in mind the financial situation of the council, which is quite clear, how much needs to be cut from the adult social care budget to balance the books in the next 2 years?
Well, the budget is 43 million. It's staying at 43 million, so we're not cutting the budget, but we're looking at transforming services for efficiencies. If savings come from that, fantastic, but first and foremost is the health and well-being of all adults in this borough.
Councillor Worrell, would you wish to speak? Oh, Councillor Worrell, sorry, it's all getting confused.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Some services have been removed already, Meals on Wheels, one example. What other services may be removed and how many job losses will this result in?
Really, Councillor Holloway, we had this discussion on the radio, we had the discussion in ONS. We have not taken away meals delivery service. The Meals on Wheels is a name provided by the Women's Royal Voluntary Society. They no longer provide that offer. They haven't done for 2 years, and for 2 years residents have not gone without a hot meal. We're still providing hot meals. We will still continue to provide hot meals. We're going to do it from a different building that's fit for purpose. Instead of spending £190,000 on a crippled building to support a service, what we can take to another kitchen, cook the food and deliver it.
Councillor Holloway, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just to clarify, it was with regards to what other services may be removed and how many losses it would result in. So hopefully you could answer that in the next question. My final question, Councillor Hewlin, was will you promise residents that currently receiving any service via adult social care that they'll be continue to get a high quality service despite financial pressures? Thank you.
100% yes. Your question around removing services, we're not removing services. We're trying to improve outcomes for residents by doing things a bit differently that is better for them, more flexible care packages, more support for carers, all of those things that are vital to our vulnerable adults. Our services are still going to be there.
Councillor Worrell, do you wish to speak?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. And yes, I do have a question. And Councillor Hewlin always talks with such passion when it comes to the arts. And I've been to many an opening night at something at the Thameside Theatre, and anybody that knows me knows that I will fight for that building forever. It's just a shame that I've never seen her at one event on an opening night at anything at the theatre. But Councillor Hewlin, I'm asking you my question, thank you. That wasn't my question. You will know that the Thameside is more than just a building that houses our great little theatre. It is home to 50 years of memorabilia and collections of Thurrock life. The library is a sanctuary for many, especially the young who do not have access to the internet and revision materials. Over 2 million admissions have passed over the theatre threshold. Many a family goes to attend the pantomime, mine included, and I've seen a fair few councillors there too on the opening night. It is home to over 50 groups and businesses. Staff tell us that there is no provision in place to preserve these services, and at the moment it is closed when it should be open. As Cabinet Member with the responsibility for the Thameside, can you assure the residents and those based in the building that you will not allow the axe to fall until or unless a new museum, library and theatre are built here in Thurrock? Not something makeshift where there's no side wings and we can't get the right capacity. We need a theatre. We've done review after review, and it's your responsibility to make sure that Thurrock has a theatre and not something a little bit makeshift.
Still not quite sure where the question was, but I appreciate the statement. Yes, I am passionate about the arts, and it must be that the nights I was there, you obviously weren't there, so maybe you're not there all the time. But I've seen pantomimes there. I've seen Peter Pan. I've actually stood on the stage and opened and closed shows that have been going on there. So you obviously weren't there when I was stood on the stage, because hopefully you would have recognised me. I've been to the dance, the school dance shows there. I've
And
been to
don't
talent
shut
shows
it.
there.
They need it.
You say that it's a theatre that you feel fit for purpose, and yet 6 years ago when I first became a councillor, I sat on overview and scrutiny when your team was in control and you had a cross-party workshop that actually came back with a report to you saying all the things that are still wrong with the theatre. Plus we've had officers and professionals look at it. So I don't know how they're all wrong and you're right, and how you didn't read your own report to know that you had some responsibility back then and didn't do it. We are taking on the responsibility now. We've been open about the fact that there was 17 million, it's 16 million on the building, and up until this week there was another million that would have had to have been spent on the lifts because they weren't COVID friendly, with only one person being able to travel in each lift at a time. So, all right, we're 1,000 down, but where are we getting the other 17 just to prop the building up without the service? Why? I'm in charge of the service, not the building. You want to talk the building, you do that with Councillor Coxall. As a service, I am trying to better and provide a theatre offer, an arts and culture offer, a museum offer, a library offer. I can't necessarily do that in old buildings that aren't fit for purpose just because you love the bricks and mortar of that building.
Then build a new one.
Councillor Piccolo, do you wish to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Regard to paragraph 16 regarding the libraries, we're fully aware that COVID caused many of the services some residents use to be affected. I'm sure the reasons that Stanford Library has remained closed are many and varied. However, is there any way the Cabinet member can get some form of service to operate from the library to help the residents of Stanford Hope?
Thank you, Councillor Piccolo. Great question. Yes, they have been difficult times, and I'm sure more issues will arise as we come out of the pandemic restrictions and move into full recovery. At present, the only way to get a service back at Stanford Hope is to take staff from other parts of the service. So to facilitate this, we are going to temporarily close Corringham Library 1 day a week in order to open Stanford Library for the same amount of time. So from now on, from the 4th of August on a Wednesday, Corringham Library will be closed and Stanford Hope Library will be open throughout the summer holidays. As I said earlier, library staffing is not resilient enough to cope with self-isolating sickness, and so there may still be times of temporary closures. That I can't avoid that at the moment. What we will do is, obviously we're going to have to look in the future at the offer, and officers are bringing a paper forward so we can start to look at a strategy to recover over COVID and move us forward. So we'll monitor the situation closely via footfall complaints, etc. And that'll help give Cabinet and Directors Board some data to make some informed decisions going forward on what we can do.
Councillor Kerry, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your report. I know this report does not mention the threatened closure of the Thameside complex. In terms of arts and culture, this complex contains the theatre itself, the Grays Central Library, the Thurrock Museum, and space for community and voluntary groups. Can you confirm that the complex will remain open and functioning until such a time as a purpose-built theatre, library and museum based in Grays are up and running for the people of Thurrock to use and enjoy? In short, either the complex remains open or something even better is built to replace it. Nothing less will do.
I think I've kind of covered this one, but I'll say again, we are looking to keep the service offer. That's what I'm looking at as Arts and Culture Portfolio Holder. We are waiting for a paper to come forward from directors, assets, strategic growth and economic directors, so that we can start to make informed decisions on what we can do. We're after open, honest conversations, including the community. Come and talk to us. Come and talk to me. Come and talk to Councillor Cockshaw. If you've got a business plan for us where we can find 17 million to prop up the building, pay the 17 million back and make the theatre profitable, help us. All I'm saying, madam, is please come and talk to us, have a conversation, because we'd like the community to help us resolve this problem, and we're open to ideas and options. But at this stage, we're talking, we're discussing. Nothing's been happening until September, when we've got all information.
Councillor Puffin-Carey, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Hewlin, for your report. And you're going to be upset about my question, but I would like to try and get a commitment from you tonight. I've always actually quite admired your stance on libraries. Anyone who doesn't know, I'm a qualified librarian. That's what I do as my day job. I'm very passionate about libraries. And I've always felt that we've been roughly on the same page about having a properly resourced, fully professionally staffed library service. What I would like from you tonight, and I think a lot of people in Grays would like from you tonight, and across the whole borough, because Grays Central Library is a very important part of the entire borough's library network, is can you promise that on your watch, Grays Central Library, which is an incredibly important part of local life, which I don't think anyone will disagree with here tonight, will not be downgraded in terms of space, paid staff, PCs or study spaces, and that the existing specialist facilities for children, young people and local history will be retained?
Thank you, Councillor Pothecary. I do welcome your question, and yes, I am passionate. Hopefully I've proved that. The library service is so important to everybody in the borough. Grays Library has one of the largest footfalls. We'd be crazy not to look at a library offer. We are looking right across. Now, what I can say is that Ian Wake and I have been round and visited the library, so that because he's new to it as well, we could really get a look at what the buildings themselves offer, what provision we have from each one, because they all are so different, because they're community orientated. And one thing that got highlighted to us at the time was that not enough room could have potentially been allocated for Grays Library, and so he and I are addressing that. I spoke to him this morning and chased, and he is bringing a strategic paper to me and Cabinet and Directors Board, so that we can really start to look at how we can continue an offer and improve an offer.
Councillor Polly, do you wish to speak? Yeah. Did you put your hand up? Oh, I thought you did. Sorry. Okay then. Councillor Hewlin, would you like to sum up?
I kind of think I have. I was going to sum up by saying, you know, we've done the hard bit, we've done the brave bit. We stood up and said we've got problems with the buildings, we've got to do something about the services, help us make some informed decisions. And I was able to already say to the members, the audience, I don't really know the gallery, that, you know, speak to us, come and talk to us, have conversations, because Councillor Cockshaw and I are open to ideas and options.
Thank you. Moving on to item 12. Questions from members. We have up to 30 minutes for this item. There were one question to the leader and 5 questions to the Cabinet members. These can be found on pages 61 to 62 of the agenda. Those questions not dealt with at this meeting, the member to whom the question is addressed shall provide a written answer as soon as practicable after the meeting. For the benefit of the recording of this meeting, I would ask members who have submitted questions to please read out their questions when asked to do so. Question 1 from Councillor Kent to Councillor Gledhill, withdrawn. I will take questions from members of Cabinet members. Question 1 from Councillor Byrne to Councillor Coxhill.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Can you explain why in planning app number 3 or whatever it's for, there was no provision for buses, especially as it's free that DP World are paying at 600k, so why has it been eliminated?
It's a great question. To ensure we make the best available space and given the best passenger experience, provision for the interchange for buses services will be provided outside the station area and are part of the wider master plan for the zone.
Councillor Byrne, do you wish to propose
Yes, please.
supplementary?
Will we give a written guarantee in stone that the second phase will have a bus provision and parking as promised? The Stamford machine are thinking the land's going to be sold for development, we're not going to get our parking and DP will keep their money. Are you going to write it in stone for us, please?
I can promise you that we will deliver the parking spaces. My council colleagues across Stamford have 10 years of misery for lack of spaces in the town centres. This government wants the town centres back reliable and running, and we must get Stamford back on the market for people wanting to open their business there and walk there, and we need parking spaces for there. I need cars, people still need cars. We need to deliver that. So when the parking spaces are 100% guarantee. The wider area needs a master plan, and that's what's happened over the last year. We really do need to get that, and the bus interchange has got to happen. Something's got to stop them buses stopping that road when it goes there, and with 20 minutes of misery of sitting people there. We've all done that, sat there on those crossings. We can solve it by the interchange, and the interchange is really important as part of it. But I think first of all we need to get phase 1, which went through last week. Really glad that did, to get a station, state-of-the-art, new station there, and that's be a part of the wider regeneration of all our stations. Great station we've done last month. We've got really good news this week, last week for Tilbury Station. Purfleet Station's moving. That means all of our stations under this administration will be refurbished and new stations across it to get C2C back into London, and Stamford's one of the most important ones, and we first to delivered.
Councillor Byrne, do you propose supplementary question?
Yes, please, Madam Mayor. Can you explain how it is possible to spend a mind-blowing £11 million on consultants and other fees to build a £9.6 million station? That is more than the actual build itself, and you're actually delivering less facilities. How can you possibly spend more money on consultants than on an actual build? Thank you.
In this day and age, it annoys me as a Conservative to do this, and it does frustrate me that professional fees are going through the roof. What we do need to do, and we're discussing that later, we need to sort these planning bills out and planning acts to make sure to make these, and this is the problem. We have got a motion earlier. We continuously have to, and businesses, and just like the council, is no different to any other businesses. If you look at the cost of the professional fees on these sites, and whether it's a public building or private buildings, they're too high. And professional fees are too high, but that's because of the system we have to go through and the hoops we have to jump for every public body. And I'm glad this government's looking at that, and we're discussing that in a minute with the Planning Act. But part of that is to remove and reduce the burden of professional fees and get more money spent on buildings, and that's what I want to deliver. And I'm glad this Conservative government's doing that.
Will you show where the 11 million has been spent for us, please?
Right. Question 2. Councillor Muldaney to Councillor Mays. Councillor Muldaney, please read out the question as set out on page 61 of the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Mays, residents contact me daily with their concerns about primary health care in Chadwell. They report waiting for hours to get through to their GP surgery and lack of appointments once they do get through. Can the portfolio holder tell the Chamber what conversations or meetings he has been having with health partners to help drive improvements in primary health care?
Councillor Mays, please respond to the question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for your question. Lots of residents have raised issues with access to primary care. I know the Conservative councillor for Chadwell raised this with me a few weeks ago in regards to the Chadwell surgery. Quite frankly, it is struggling with the current climate, as you can imagine, and it wasn't great beforehand. What I have done is I've raised this primary care access issue in a number of recent discussions with health partners, including Thurrock CCG. Most recently, I discussed this specifically with Rahul Chowdhury, he is the Thurrock CCG Director of Primary Care, on Monday the 5th of July. He advised that primary care is currently experiencing an unprecedented challenge in terms of patient demand, plus also staffing capacity challenges as they continue to roll out the COVID vaccination programme, as well as providing the usual care. We suggested that some communications for local residents would be useful, including alternative sources of care and advice where appropriate, including the use of the NHS 111 scheme, which also will allow for triaging people as they come through. The current challenges re primary care access have also been discussed in some length with the Thurrock Integrated Care Partnership Board in recent weeks and are being picked up by the MSE Health and Care Partnership.
Councillor Muldowney, do you wish to propose a supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your reply, Councillor Mayers. I'm very concerned about access to GPs in Chadwell. Over the last year, there's been at least 2 cases of elderly residents ending up seriously, very seriously, near death, ill, because they could not get treatment from their GP. Chadwell residents have since heard that the opening of the Tilbury IMC, Integrated Medical Centre, may mean the closure of both Chadwell surgeries. Can you reassure Chadwell residents that the opening of the new Tilbury Integrated Medical Centre will not result in GP surgeries being moved out of Chadwell?
Thank you, Councillor. Obviously, the effects of COVID have meant that residents are either concerned to come forward and basically there's been a bit of a lag in the system because of the isolation period. The Tilbury and Chadwell IMC will be obviously for that area and servicing the whole of Thurrock as well. There will be surgeries that will move into there, as was highlighted in the HOS meeting recently. However, what surgeries they are will be down for the healthcare professionals to decide, not this council. Thank you.
Councillor Muldowney, do you wish to pose a second supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, I would. I'm afraid that's not good enough. You're the portfolio holder for health. Promises have been made that the new integrated medical centres will improve GP services, and now Chadwell potentially faces less services with a much greater distance to travel. Please will you meet as a matter of urgency to discuss how more immediate improvements to GP services can be made and go back to health partners to gain reassurances that the new Tilbury Integrated Medical Centre will not mean that primary health care will be moved further away from Chadwell residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for that. Not sure where you got that information from. I'd be happy to meet with anybody who comes forward, as I did with the Conservative Councillor for Chadwell, and also Councillor Van Day. Anybody that comes forward with an issue with primary care, I'll be happy to speak to, because quite frankly, this does affect all of our residents and shouldn't be political. However, it's sad when the only people that actually come to me directly are my Conservative colleagues. So I'll be happy to meet with you if you request, and thank you very much.
Right, thank you. Question 3 from Councillor Muldowney to Councillor Jeffries. Councillor Muldowney, please read out your question as set out on page 61 of the agenda.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Given the recent vandalism of graves and other antisocial behaviour in Chadwell Cemetery, will the portfolio holder now agree to resume locking the cemetery gates after dark?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Muldowney, for your question. The pedestrian gates that provide access to the walkways throughout the borough's cemeteries have not been locked for several years. Additionally, the vehicle gates have also remained unlocked for over 18 months. This has provided access to our cemeteries for those visiting the sites with mobility limitations, with no restrictions on visiting times. It would appear that leaving the vehicle gates open has not attributed to this incident occurring, as the pedestrian gates have remained open for several years prior to this without any incident. In relation to this particular incident, the police and the officers from the council have been liaising to discuss the matter further. And as I said in conversation with the newly elected councillor for Chadwell just recently, this form of antisocial behaviour is clearly both very upsettingly and unacceptable. but thankfully it's very rare. Most members of the public are respectful when visiting their loved ones in our cemeteries.
Councillor Muldowney, do you wish to propose a supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would. We've just heard how £109,000 was spent on the bring sites for waste during the bin strike. Some of that money was spent on security who were there to watch the gates. I think the council needs to take some responsibility for the security of where our borough's loved ones rest and make sure that they rest in peace. I expect we'd all like to leave our houses or car doors unlocked, but we know that we can't. The argument that some gates have never been locked doesn't wash. Maybe they haven't, but maybe now they should, given the recent problems, at least after dark. If you will not commit to locking the gates at night or providing security, will the portfolio holder agree to install CCTV in the cemetery so that the police might have some hope of catching the culprits in the future?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor, for your question. As I've just said in my answer to your previous question, these incidents are incredibly rare. Totally unacceptable, but very rare. And over the last 18 months, when the vehicle gates have been open, and for a lot longer period of time, the pedestrian gates have been open, they're very rare. So I really don't think you could really justify saying we need CCTV or we need security guards. Most people, when visiting our cemeteries, respect these areas, are considerate to everybody, and again, I repeat, these incidents are pretty rare, but should always be condemned.
Councillor Muldowney, do you wish to propose a second supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Although it's been denied recently, I have an email from March which says quite clearly this change was made to save on overtime pay, not just to let our residents with mobility problems access the cemetery, which of course I am in favour of. I was also told that if antisocial behaviour reoccurred, the council would be happy to review its decision not to lock the gates. So I call on you again, please. You're willing to spend money watching waste sites. You're not willing to install CCTV so that the police can actually have a chance of catching culprits. This was a really, really bad act of vandalism. A lot of residents, not just in Chadwell, but from all around the borough, are really upset about this and have been writing to me. Please will you agree to meet with me to see if we can find a way to improve the security on not just Chadwell Cemetery, but all of our cemeteries in the borough. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. The council makes reference to the 109,000 spent on bin sites. We wouldn't have had to have spent that money if the Thurrock Labour Party didn't support a politically motivated strike to try and get votes. It failed. Councillor Carter is proof of that. The new councillor for Chadwell. So perhaps the group opposite might like to look at their policies towards these things. Not supporting a politically motivated strike wouldn't have cost the council money. As for the cemeteries, I have a cemetery in my own ward. The gates aren't locked. People have... See, everything's falling down over there. Look, even the walls. Is that the red wall falling? In my own ward... Are you going to stop clapping and actually listen to my answer?
Clapping? They're clapping you.
Well, actually, if you look through all these papers, it's Councillor Muldowney, Councillor Muldowney. Is it because she's up for election next year and she's worried that Councillor Carter will beat again?
Right. Right, thank you. Question 4 from Councillor Kent to Councillor Mainley has been withdrawn. Question 5, Councillor Kent to Councillor Jeffries has been withdrawn. Item 13, reports from members representing the council on outside bodies. Does any member who represents the council on outside bodies wish to present a report? No? Right. Item 14, minutes of committees. These are listed on the agenda contents page. Item 15, motions update report. The next items can be found on page 63 of the agenda and is an update on the ongoing motions to the council. Item 16, motion 1. I have agreed that Councillor Kent's motion be deferred to the September's council. Motion 2. Councillor Rigby, do you wish to propose and speak to your motion printed on page 67 of the agenda?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I can speak now, if that's okay. Would you like me to read out the actual motion or just proceed to speak? So the motion states, Her Majesty the Queen will be celebrating her Platinum Jubilee next June. To commemorate such a momentous occasion, the Council calls on the Cabinet to plant an established tree in each ward between October and March with a plaque. This will be in line with the Queen's Green Canopy project and will provide a lasting legacy of Her Majesty's devotion to the Commonwealth. Next year, Her Majesty the Queen will be celebrating her 70-year reign, which has spanned events including the Suez Canal disaster, the IRA troubles, the formation of the European Union, with the UK's subsequent departure from, and the coronavirus pandemic. The Queen's Green Canopy project seeks to inspire individuals, communities, and businesses to plant a tree which will be here for generations to come. Trees provide an important habitat, shelter and food source for many species, aid with flood resistance, reduce noise and air pollution, helping to combat climate change. Working with officers, ward councillors will have the opportunity to choose a suitable tree and location, which will be a fitting tribute to the longest serving British monarch.
Thank you. Is that seconded?
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Would you like to speak or reserve your right to speak until a later debate?
I'll speak now, Madam Mayor. Sorry, I seem to be invading my personal space here with this wonderful wall. I think this is quite an easy motion to accept this evening. It does exactly what it says on the tin. This is about commemorating 70 years of Her Majesty's reign. This is about putting trees into each ward, with each ward member having a say, so including the newly elected member for Chadwell. I'm sorry, but I felt left out.
I'm really getting the Chadwell bit tonight.
And indeed the newly elected member for Bellas. We must not forget it wasn't just Chadwell where we took new seats. But in all seriousness, each member will get the opportunity to say where and indeed what type of tree. It's not going to be one size fits all. Different trees thrive much better in different areas, and we need to make sure that these trees are not just here for 5 years or 10 years, but longer than Her Majesty's reign, and hopefully Her Majesty's reign will not come to an end for quite some time. Of course, it does say here that the Cabinet will be planting these mature trees. As much as I do like digging a hole every so often, it's normally in this chamber rather than in the ground, and I will leave it to the professionals to plant these trees, but I can assure you as the leader and indeed the leader of the Cabinet that if this is endorsed tonight, this will be one of the things I'll be quite happy to endorse as soon as we possibly can as Cabinet. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Does any member wish to speak or comment on the motion? Councillor Apothecary?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Rigby, for bringing this motion. I think we can probably all agree that trees are good, and we all like trees, and we would all like more trees. And for many of the excellent reasons that Councillor Rigby touched upon there, this would be a fitting tribute, but it will also be a great contribution to sort of our local environments. What I would just ask again is to just stress that it will be really, really important to work with local communities and all of their ward councillors, not just your favourites, in terms of where these trees are sited, and also local community groups and residents associations, because we know that this council sometimes gets it wrong on removing garden areas that local residents are really, really fond of. So I would like to support the motion tonight, and we'll be voting with it.
Thank you. Councillor Rinsell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Rigby, for putting the motion forward. As I was the one that put the motion for trees in this borough, we've done really well with trees. At the moment, we've got, I think, over 1,000 trees been planted, and any old tree that comes down, a new tree goes up. So with Councillor Rigby's motion tonight, it's something that most of our kings and queens and any people of standing are in the Impulse Leisure site as the entrance, so most of the trees are still there. So if we can do a tree in every part of the borough, it will be wonderful. Thank you.
Councillor Goodhill. No.
I've already spoken, Madam Mayor.
Right, thank you. Councillor Rigby, would you like to sum up? Please.
Only to say thank you to everyone for your support with this motion. Thank you.
I will proceed to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Three. Unanimous. All those against? None. All those abstaining? None. Motion's agreed? Yeah. Thank you. Item 8, motion 3, item 18. Councillor Watson, do you wish to propose and speak on to your motion as printed on page 69 of the agenda?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'm a newly elected from West Thurrock, South Tiverton and Purfleet on Thames. So, thank you. The government has published a controversial proposal to reform the planning system. One aspect is that of particular concern for me and for others is a proposal to remove local residents' rights to object to individual planning applications in their own neighbourhoods if the area is zoned for growth or renewal. It would come no surprise that Thurrock is a zone for growth, as we have been told numerous occasions that we are not building enough houses. As well as reducing the community's voices in planning decision, these reforms would endanger affordable and social housing and will allow developers to build not good quality homes, high density, as well as not enough affordable housing that this borough really needs. We all know that the current decisions are taken by council with a larger contentious applications decided by planning committee. In the new reform, the council will have some say in the designated areas of growth, renewal or protection for some of the zones. But after that, residents and members would be almost powerless to influence development. In growth areas, development proposals will be automatically granted for outline planning permission, with detailed planning decisions delegated to planning officers. In terms of renewal areas, for example, estate renewal, development in town centres and edge of villages, there is an expectation in favour of developments with some types of development receiving automatic planning consent. I note that the amended has been amended by Councillor Gedhill, and in the spirit of cooperation working in this motion, I am happy to accept that amendment. I therefore ask you all to accept the amended motion. Thank you.
I'm not quite sure why I've got those. Is that seconded?
Seconded, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Kim. Would you like to speak now or reserve your right to speak?
I'm accustomed to speaking immediately. I normally do wait, but I will speak now. I will try and keep this short again because I seem to be, the more hot air I make, the more this tends to fall on me. I'm grateful for Councillor Watson to accepting the minor changes to her motion, and hopefully it will see a swift, unanimous support across the whole chamber. It's just living proof of what Reverend Barlow said at the beginning of our meeting, that we do better when we work together. And whilst I don't fully agree with everything that she's brought forward, the points that she made are quite valid and indeed well made. For decades, there has been a call for planning reform, and this government has been clear in its intention to deliver just that. We currently have a system that really doesn't give residents a say on what they can expect from an application, be it small or large, across the borough. It's only at the last minute when local residents can have a say and support or object to an application, and that does need to change. Thurrock is at the forefront of this change already, and as part of the local plan that we're introducing, with our charrette system, engaging with communities long before the application is put to the local residents. Their needs are taken from this, they're understood and they're addressed, and then the standards are set for developers to follow with their upcoming developments. And residents are not forced solely to be reactive and say, we're against this because, and only can do that at the very last minute. And indeed, when they do say that, sometimes their heartfelt and indeed very logical reasons for objection are sometimes not material planning reasons. And therefore, we see local communities adversely affected by ill-designed applications that do nothing to enhance a local infrastructure or place. And I know this is understood by Parliament, hence the evolving situation as the proposals for the new legislation move through the House. And on the evolving situation, the Secretary of State for Housing, Communities and Local Government announced yesterday the formation of the new Office of Place. And today I've received the official letter from him outlining the plans which he is looking to introduce through this office. And they are things like make beauty and placemaking a strategic theme for the framework, set out the expectation that local authorities produce their own design codes and guides setting out the development principles which new developers in their area should reflect, something I've just mentioned. Set out an expectation that all new streets are tree-lined. Bearing in mind our last motion, I think this is going to be welcomed by all. Improve the biodiversity and access to nature through design. And put emphasis on improving good design as well as refusing poor quality schemes, as unfortunately we've been lumbered with in Thurrock time and time again, whether it be by good applications or indeed for colleagues formerly of the Development Corporation. What this does show, of course, is that changes to planning legislations are not always what they are made out to be, and residents' voices will not be ignored, and their voice will not be taken away from them, and they will be listened to not only as they are now, but before a planning application is even contemplated by the developers, by ensuring that a local plan is robust, takes into account their thoughts, their needs, and their requirements in their local community. And I know many others will probably wish to speak on this tonight, and hopefully it won't be too many as we can see the temperature rising far, far too much. But if this motion is fully supported, I will gladly write to our MPs on behalf of all the elected members here tonight and ask them to carry on ensuring that residents do have their voice on planning as these new emerging legislation comes forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
As this amendment has been accepted, I will now move to the debate. Councillor Coxall, would you like to speak?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm not going to reiterate what my leader just said, but there's a few things that's got to be corrected about this. There is always worried about planning, and you see that, and we've seen it in Thurrock. But what we're saying, these designs don't take away the power of the local residents. They put the local residents before the planning application, and it's through a local plan process, which we're in the middle of the year of the local plan. And we were very proud to, 2 years ago in Purfleet, have the design charrettes, which is a pilot scheme on which we've then, before this planning committee, the plan's been through, we've put design charrettes across the borough now. And so we're doing actually something like these local plans, design charrettes, and encourage everyone, the members, every member in here and the communities for the next 6 months will be invited to come to design charrettes, which talk about what they want in their communities before a planning application. And so these zones that we're talking about it's actually before you get it tonight, like you get there first. You see it first, you understand it. These plan application builders and developers can't bring them forward until they've had a conversation. It's very much like it's being used. We're a pilot in Purfleet. I think Purfleet worked very well. I think people understood what was happening around Purfleet and not Purfleet, Averley, sorry. And Purfleet is my example that was wrong with planning. I moved there, and I know there's a new councillor here for Purfleet, but I moved there 11 years ago to see the houses that were going to be built in Purfleet. And I was excited about the new houses, the new town centre. I left Purfleet 10 years later and moved to Grays, and not one house had been built. Now, that's we can't carry on like that. We can't carry on with no more houses like that in Purfleet. When the community wants the housing, we should be able to move at a speed and make sure the community doesn't. When the community doesn't want the housing through a local plan, that's when we should stop. And that's what it's saying. It brings power to the community before there's plan applications. These firms will bring the firm into the 21st century. We've talked about it. We really want to. We want to bring people along with this project, along with this housing. You've heard today that how many times the Councillor for Housing wants to build houses because we've got too many people of there. And what I think, by the age of 30, people born between 1981 and 2000 are half as likely to be homeowners than those born between 1946 and 1968. Now, that is too many young people are locked out of the benefits of capitalism. And capitalism reduces poverty. And we need to do that, and we need to actually build housing. Capitalism works, and it's worked since the Second World War, and this is what we're actually doing. And I'm disappointed that Thurrock Labour, continuously, when we bring sites through the last 4 years, stoke up public objections and stoke up half-halves truths, and to see that, and we object every time about we want to do something different. We want to build it, and I hope this plan, they're voting for it tonight, that they're accepting that we want to build houses for them young people under 30, whether it's a low-cost homes, and that's really good that we're going to write to our MPs and develop and bring forward this bill.
Does any member wish to comment on the motion as amended? Councillor Polly, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and yes, I'd like to welcome Councillor Watson, and well done on your maiden address to the Chamber. She's also my ward councillor, so it's great to hear that we are still engaging with the community. As a resident of Purfleet-on-Thames, I was subject to the Development Corporation, and not only did the rights of the residents get removed, also the rights to the elected members to have input and representation at the Development Corporation. So I would very much support Councillor Watson's amended motion that it is still paramount that although we're front-loading the planning system, that we're getting all the discussions and all the niggly bits talked about and ironed out up front, and I would urge every member in this chamber to get involved with the local development plan, because that is your master plan. That is what we're going to be working to, and we've heard a lot about delivering housing and services this evening, and that is a travel document. So it is crucial that members engage with it and encourage their residents to get involved with the local development plans. But I still feel that we always get to that 11th hour where there'll be something that's come up, there's been an amendment to the planning application, or it's not as... Sometimes there's consultations, as we've heard from Councillor Byrne, go on for a very long time. They get very costly. And then when it comes to chamber, or when it comes to an application, there'll be things that are altered in them that the public are not aware of, as we're finding with the Lower Thames Crossing as well. It's consultation after consultation. So I would very much support that we do lobby our MPs to continue with the right to residents to have their voice in the planning applications. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Watson, would you like to sum up?
Just to say thank you for all the support, and hopefully this motion is accepted, so the council can go ahead and write to the MPs. Thank you.
I will now proceed to the vote. All those in favour raise their hand. Three. All those against? None. Abstaining? Raise their hand. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Motion carried. That concludes the business of the meeting this evening, and I'll now declare the meeting closed. Thank you.